The world economy will be worse than expected in the short term, says central bank governor. Why is it always the central bankers and the so-called experts that are always the last to know? Why is that? Hey everybody, JJ here. You're watching Bull to the Bust. It is Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. Recent article here out of CNBC. The world economy will be worse than expected. Well, my question is, did anyone think it was going to be better than expected? I doubt anyone on this channel did. It continues, the IMF fund has said that the global economy would contract by 4.4% this year. This central bank governor also said, recent events I think point to a deterioration rather than an improvement in the short run. That's Benjamin Dianco, the Philippine central bank governor. All right, now remember, this is worldwide. Central banks around the world have the same failed strategy that they're continuing to implement. It's lower rates, it's more stimulus, keeping the banks propped up, bond purchases to the moon, buying everything in sight, corporate debt, and on and on and on. The same thing over and over, which is the definition of insanity. And does anyone expect different results? A recent report here, jobless claims preview this week, another 725,000 jobs lost. And these are new claims. So at some point you begin to ask, how are jobs continuing to be lost? Does it ever get to a point where there's not any jobs left to lose? When will this get to the point where the major networks are going to level with the people that this economy is not going to be rescued? It's not going to be saved by the same failed policies that they've been using now for years and years and years. All right, if the major media networks would report on the actual fundamentals of this economy, which are awful, then maybe people would wake up and snap out of it. But we saw, what do we see after Black Friday? We saw record cyber spending, Cyber Monday spending, a new all-time record, even amidst the worst economic downturn that we've seen since the Great Depression. It's absolutely mind-blowing, you know, that people are still that confident that this economy is going to get better. And I had someone in comments put down that they're doing the new series of lockdowns, or the new wave of lockdowns, to cover up for this continued economic collapse or the failure of the economy to actually recover. Remember, the stock market's recovering, new all-time highs. It's more than recovered, new records. The fake phony unemployment number, that's gotten a lot lower since the peak of the unemployment tsunami that we saw back in the summer. Home prices continue to be pumped into the stratosphere. Now, why do I say pumped? It's because the banks have now thrown any caution out the window. You would think that with home prices now inflated way beyond where they were at the peak of the housing bubble 12 years ago now, that banks would be somewhat cautious. And then people say, no, JJ, they're not giving out loans like they did back in the mid-2000s with the liar loans and the no-document loans, stated income loans. Well, maybe not in the exact same way, but it's actually much worse right now. Right now, there's no reserve requirement at all for banks to continue to lend. And I think that's much more dangerous than the loose lending that we saw back in the mid-2000s. And that's how they're able to keep this housing market propped up. And we've got the Fed involved in these markets, causing lower and lower rates. And the Fed has an indirect impact on mortgage rates, and mortgage rates continue to get lower and lower and lower. New record lows, it seems like every 2 weeks. Recent article here, Yahoo Finance, mortgage rates keep sinking and refinances keep sizzling. All right, what we have here is massive FOMO. People see the consistently rising home prices, and we have continued housing shortages. And I was talking to one person, they said they had, one of my customers said they had 20-something bids on a home that they were trying to get, and their offer was $20,000. This is here in San Diego, $20,000 over the listing price, and yet they still got outbid. And overall, there was 20-something offers on one property. This is absolute insanity right now. All right, but this article goes on to say sinking mortgage rates are keeping America's finance frenzy going, a new report shows. Refi requests are rolling in at double the rate of a year ago. Home refinancing, double the rate of a year ago. Right, we're back to homes as piggy banks, or homes as ATM, as some people like to say, ATM machines. All right, when the string pullers are no longer incentivized to keep this entire economic illusion propped up, you're going to see probably the biggest economic collapse that we've ever witnessed in this country. Now, will the banks just one day out of the blue say, oh, we decided to no longer lend, we finally realized that home prices are too high? Up until now we didn't realize it. No, of course they're not going to say that. There's going to be some sort of situation that's going to come up. I call it a black swan event, and this event is going to be coming up, in my opinion, in the next 6 to 7 weeks. No later than 7 weeks. All right, so we're talking mid to late January 2021. And if you've been on this channel now for a year or two, you know how often we've discussed the black swan, the scapegoat, the excuse, the trigger for the downturn that they can point to, and I'm talking about the bankers when I say they can point to, and they can say, oh, look, that happened, no one saw this coming, this was a black swan event, it came out of nowhere, there was no way anyone could have known about this. And of course, yes, we had all the panic here in 2020. We had the shutdowns, the lockdowns. But through 2020, throughout this year, there was an incentive for the administration to keep this illusion alive for the rest of the year. Well, I think that incentive has vanished, and I would be very, very careful now. All right, these banks, they will come back and take your home so fast it's going to make your head spin once they take away all these protections that are currently in place right now. And that's another thing we've talked about a lot. Imagine how much more sick this economy would look and how much more people would actually realize what's happening if they allowed natural market forces to work. Foreclosures, evictions. All right, this would be an absolute nightmare if it were not for what? The propping up, the intervention, the easy money, the stimulus to infinity. All right, so keep an eye out, keep an ear out for the black swan. There's going to be some sort of excuse that they'll need to float out there to justify what's going to happen. I think it could be banks shutting down, it could be maybe a grid failure, maybe massive website outages. I expect something big to happen. Right, I just want to make sure that everyone understands. Heads up, eyes peeled, be hyper alert. Black swan incoming. We were right about the last one. We didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but we've been talking about black swan events on this channel for years. And think about it. The bankers, they're not going to just let the system fail, because then it's going to be all eyes on them, all fingers pointed at the bankers and their flawed system, which is what? Infinite debt, creating infinite amounts of money out of thin air, picking the winners and losers, intervening in what should be a natural economic or market cycle, right? Throwing supply and demand completely out of whack. All right, this economy, it's an insane, psycho, illusionary, twilight zone, illusion, flawed, fractured economy. And the further we go into the stratosphere, the bigger the drop's going to be and the harder the collapse. All right, be careful out there, people. Expect the unexpected here. The time is short. The fuse is getting shorter. And everybody brace yourselves. Stay well, stay safe, stay prepared. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.